You are listening to a BeachGlass Media podcast.
In recent news, Donald Trump has selected his vice presidential pick to run with him for the 2024 presidential election. And the bad news is, he is very, very weird. Yes, the person Trump selected is weird. Extremely weird. JD Vance is his name. And it turns out JD is a big weirdo. I mean, first of all, what kind of psychotic name is JD? Why isn't his name an actual name? Why a pair of initials? I believe he's hiding something. He cannot be trusted. This weirdo. The mainstream media persists that you should be aware about how weird this man is. For one, he served in the Marines. Weird. Who does that? Two, he wrote a book. Unbelievable. It's a memoir. Wow. A memoir? A memoir about growing up in Ohio. What kind of freak writes a memoir about life in Ohio? My goodness. Third, he's a senator from Ohio. Yuck. Weird. Fourth, he's married to an Indian woman. What in the world is wrong with this guy? His wife's name is, wait for it, I swear I'm not making this up, Usha Chilukuri. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. This man is weird. Oh, but it gets worse. JD Vance has 3 kids. Strange. And what's even stranger is that he has 3 kids with his wife. What, the HE double hockey sticks? Oh, my word. And he went to Yale. Weird. Oh, and here's the nail in the coffin. You ready? He's a self-proclaimed Catholic. Oh, the horror. How could someone do that to themselves? Straight up weird. How can this be possible? How did JD Vance's weirdness slip through the cracks and into Orange Man Trump's orange hands? How could this have happened? There must be some kind of mistake. Well, America, don't be alarmed. I have some good news for you. And you should be able to sleep cozy and comfortably at night because luckily for the country, you can vote for a presidential candidate who is not weird at all. A presidential candidate that already has experience as a vice president. Ladies and gentlemen, rest assured, you can vote for the most normal person the world has ever seen. Someone who is not weird at all. Someone that makes Weird Al Yankovic look like Jeffrey Dahmer. That's right, America. Get your pen ready this November and be sure to vote for the most normal human being on planet Earth. Kamala Harris. My name is Andrew Reyes, and this is Faith in Politics with me, Andrew Reyes. Part 1. Created in his image. Thank you for joining me on episode 2. If this is your first time stumbling on this podcast project of mine, I just want to quickly ask you to please like, subscribe, follow the show, and please leave a positive review if you're enjoying the show so far. But let's jump right into it. Today, I want to focus on a section in Genesis chapter 1 again, this time about how God created mankind. It says the following in Genesis chapter 1. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and every living creature that moves on the ground." And that was from Genesis chapter 1, verses 27 to 28. So, what can we take from this? Once again, Genesis was written by Moses, a man who truly spent quite a number of years knowing God on a personal level, from meeting with God in the story of the burning bush to Moses being given the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai for God's people. Moses wrote this passage, inspired by God, to display what I believe to be the blueprint or the plan for us human beings here on earth. God created mankind in his own image, meaning that we resemble God and we are set apart from the rest of his creation, which that would include the animals, because God gives mankind dominion over the animals, just as we read in that passage. And the last thing I want to point out is that God created mankind to be male and female. And I want to point this part out because I've noticed that some quote-unquote progressive Christian teachers and preachers have tendencies to omit that little section from the passage of Scripture, which I thought we were supposed to read the Bible in context and not just pick and choose what we like and then bend it backwards and forwards to make it fit what works for, certain postmodern ideologies. But instead, we should read the Bible contextually. Male and female, it says. Looks like 2 genders to me, not 3. Not 4, and not an infinite amount, just 2. And they are to be fruitful and multiply. Yes, to enjoy sex and reproduce. Sounds to me like God's plan is for mankind to populate the earth. It seems to me that having kids in this case is actually a great thing. If that reads as a command, which I believe it does, don't get me wrong. It's not easy to raise children by any stretch of the imagination. Ask me how I know. I have 3 kids, but from my personal experience, you learn so much about the human experience on a deeper and personal level that I believe wholeheartedly that a textbook will never be able to describe or put into words the feeling of having to raise your own children, especially when you are raising them with your spouse. It's a beautiful feeling. It's just something out of this world. It's hard to explain, hard to express in words. And I believe that God set it up this way because in any other way, there's that ability to lose that special spiritual connection with God, leading you to raise your family in a way that it just has the potential for ultimate blessings and just great fulfillment. Part 2, Childless Cat Lady. So JD Vance is Donald Trump's VP pick to run with him. And JD has been put through the ringer in recent news for something that he said back in July of 2021 on an interview with Tucker Carlson. Let's take a listen.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
Now, yes, that is a little harsh. Yes, that kind of puts the childless cat ladies into a new demographic of sorts. But how dare he belittle the cats? For the record, I have a cat, and I love my cat. I grew up not ever having a cat, and then toward the beginning of this year, my family took the plunge and adopted a cat. And if it wasn't for my wife and kids talking me into it, I would have never learned about the joy of being a cat owner. It's great. It's different than owning a dog. Cats are fascinating creatures, I must say. But the only problem with owning a cat or a dog or any type of pet in general is that pets should not replace the beauty that can be found in raising a child. Having fur babies should not be an equal swap for an actual baby. Now, I'm not completely heartless. I understand that some couples can't have children, and I feel for them. But I believe people should at least strive to be a type of parental figure to a young child, at least, in some type of manner. And why do I say this? Well, I hate to state the obvious, but are we forgetting that you and I were once children ourselves? And did you forget that we grow up and then we contribute to society in some way or in some fashion? Children are essentially the future, to state the obvious. And they are necessary in order to have a future. Society needs children if, we want society to thrive and survive. Yes, I know. Children are a pain in the rear, but come on. I'm sure some of you listening were a pain in the rear as kids and possibly still are. But we can learn so much from kids. Just like I'm learning myself as I raise my own kids that, yeah, I was once a kid. I remember what it was like. I get like flashbacks thinking about my kids and what they're going through. And yeah, I made dumb mistakes, and I'm thankful that I had parents that were there for me along the way to help me learn, and that, learn that as long as I'm living and breathing, that there will be a future that needs the children to help make the world and society a better place. Conclusion. I strongly believe that God set the world into motion to work in a particular way. And he did this from the beginning. And I believe that his plan has always been perfect, because I believe God is perfect. However, obviously, when sin entered the world, as in when Adam and Eve sinned against God, which I might talk about on the next episode, God's initial plan for humanity fell apart. Of course, not everybody in this world will fall snugly into God's plan for procreation, but for Pete's sake, we have to at least acknowledge that God set up this world to work in a particular way, to where the only way we are all here, alive at this very moment, is precisely because each and every one of us had a beginning of our own. That each and every one of us were once born into this world and have now grown up into who we are today. And if some of us, if we're not happy with ourselves, I believe we have everything we need within us, with the help of God, to become the type of person that we want to be. Of course, we all didn't come from perfect families. Once again, we live in a fallen world due to sin. However, I can at least say that God's plan is the plan that Christian believers should strive for. And that will do it for today's episode. Thank you for listening, and hopefully you come back for the next one. Until then, keep up the faith.